Hello, welcome to the Believe Show. Today we're here with LaKenzise Mayberry, and I'm going to tell you a few things about LaKenzise before we get started. LaKenzise is a human resource professional with 10 years experience engaging business professionals in all sorts of learning and organizational development experiences designed to help them learn, grow, thrive professionally. She uses her background in social work and positive psychology to create safe and inclusive training spaces where participants can unlock their potential, can understand their strengths and their values, and can overcome self-imposed limitations. Hello, LaKenzise. Wonderful to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I'm thrilled you're here. We're going to start with the 3 silly questions. First one, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a writer for a fashion magazine.
Indeed.
Yes, I'm far away from that, but that's what I wanted to be growing up.
So were you always trying on clothes and putting them on different ways when you were a kid?
Absolutely, and reading all the magazines, all the stories. I just loved it.
That's awesome. Second question, what is one of your favorite foods?
My favorite food? Oh, that's a good one. I would say any kind of seafood. I absolutely love seafood. Yeah.
Awesome. And then the third of our questions, high school can be a challenging time. What was either a good part of high school, or what did you discover about yourself during high school?
High school, I would say probably my senior year was a good part of high school. I actually had an English literature teacher who introduced me to a lot of different kinds of books. That was the first time that, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And she introduced me to that and just opened my eyes to kind of a world that was completely outside of the little bubble that I was living in. So, it was senior year. I thought I was going to skate through, and I think she really opened my mind up in ways that I could not have expected. So,
well, and I think that's wonderful because that's what your work is now in terms of helping people open their minds to what they're not expecting. That's wonderful.
So I guess definitely it had an effect.
Okay, so Believe Show wise, what is it that you believe that others in your field would disagree with you about?
I believe that discipline in the workplace does not work at all. I've seen it happen over and over again, the progressive discipline policies, the punitive consequences to different things in the workplace. And what I've seen is it just doesn't work. It does not deliver the intended result. When you discipline an employee, typically they don't come back to be this model employee that everyone loves after the fact. So it just doesn't work. And I just don't think it's productive for the workplace.
How have you come to that conclusion? What is it that you saw? What did you experience? What did you observe?
So I work in government. And in government, there's more long-term career employees, like, employees who've probably been in their positions 10, 15, 20 years. And what I've seen when discipline policies are used with employees is that you typically get people that completely withdraw. You get basic compliance. So you get people who will do the bare minimum, but anything over that bare minimum, you really do have to give them instruction. So you kind of, I'm sure when you discipline adults in the workplace, you're not trying to create children, but in a sense, you create employees who have to be told everything to do. Because, who wants to get in trouble if they, speak up against something that's unpopular or anything like that? So people have a tendency just to kind of lean all the way back as opposed to leaning in.
Yeah. Well, then I'm sure on the minds of everybody who's with us today and on my mind, if you don't discipline people, but you have something that you want changed, what do you recommend instead?
I recommend that you have a human conversation. I've also experienced, situations where managers sitting down with their employees, maybe it was, a part of the progressive discipline process, but that conversation kind of opened up a whole new relationship between the manager and the employee. And it's because they were forced to sit down and talk about what was going on. Sometimes when people are not doing what you expect for them in the workplace, they may not even be aware of your expectations. Maybe there are roadblocks that the manager isn't aware of. It's not that I am, consistently delivering you reports with errors. It's that my keyboard 5 keys stick and I can't get them to work, and it becomes frustrating to type anything. That actually happened in the workplace. You know, it's little things like that that people are not aware of. But when you sit down and you have a human conversation, not to punish someone, but to figure out what's going on and how you can help, I think it just changes things. So, you know, either you're going to, you know, stick it to them and force them to comply, or you have a conversation with them. And I think it just opens everyone up to be more engaged, more productive, and more willing to go over and beyond, you know, to make sure that the organization or the team meets its mission.
How have you seen that work? So let's say you've seen a situation where a manager is about to use exactly what you say don't do, is about to use some discipline in the workplace, so like one of those progressive improvement. But you have actually, say, had a conversation with that manager and said, don't do that. Have a human conversation. How have you seen that work?
I've seen, I guess the most powerful way I've seen is just like the relationship starts to grow. You know, managers learn things about their employees that they may have never known. They learn that, you know, and it's hard to believe, you know, because we're all people in the workplace, but some managers don't even know that perhaps they have an employee that's caring for an elderly parent. And that's something that just came up. So, you know, it's not that I'm consistently 5 minutes late every day because I don't care about my job. It's because I have a lot going on. And, you know, and I think having that conversation, you know, because when that manager can then, you know, be a little more flexible, maybe stagger the, you know, the beginning time for that employee just a little bit to accommodate what's going on in their life. They get an employee that's grateful. They get an employee that wants to work for a person who cares about me as a person. And I've really, in that particular situation, I just saw, you know, an employee who had been there for a long time, probably had completely turned out, you know, for a lot of reasons, just kind of blossom again in their same job. And I just thought that was a beautiful thing. It all started with a human conversation.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying managers, whoever's out here who's listening, managers, and we actually have a lot of managers, people managers in the dealership. You're saying if you're thinking of going towards any kind of discipline, first have those conversations, find out what's going on. You may not need to even go in that direction at all.
Absolutely. You know, there are things that people do in the workplace that, you know, that are egregious. You know, there's just no other way than maybe, you know, even go directly to termination. But for the little things, I think have a human conversation first. You know, see if you can kind of meet that employee where they are and accommodate them in the workplace. You know, a lot of times, you know, a good employee is not someone who just does what they're told and never says anything or asks any question. A good employee is the employee who's always thinking about how to be better, how to, you know, better serve the needs of the customers. How can we all, you know, work better together, those kinds of things. And you get those employees when you show just a little bit of concern about them, for them as people, as opposed to, you know, I guess people that need to be commanded and controlled all the time. So, you know, just those human conversations, I think, just open up everything for employees in the workplace.
And especially over the past year, when people have had very different work and life situations, and you never know who's walking into your Zoom and your meeting, and you just don't know what's going on at people's homes when they're also trying to do good work for you as a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, things change so quickly because of COVID-19. You know, we didn't have time to kind of come up with plans of how we're going to send, you know, tons of people home to work and be productive, you know. So these human conversations became even more important because, you know, you may have sent people home to work from home who didn't have all the necessary resources to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, go ahead.
First, for the people who are with us today, please type in any takeaways you have from what LaKenzise is saying to us right now. So start typing in what is something that you want to do differently, or you want to have a discussion with somebody about potentially somebody else doing something differently. So let us know some of your takeaways. And my question to you is, there's so much behind the scenes that we don't see in a manager and a team member relationship. So a manager might start to get frustrated with certain things that they might not be sharing, because by the time you get to a performance improvement plan or something like that, you have to be, you have to just not really believe in that relationship. So my question to you is, let's say people here who are with us today, they totally buy it. They say LaKenzise is right. Discipline in the workplace does not work. The opposite is what we should do, which is have conversations. But sometimes they've just let things drift a little too much. And so a lot of errors have gotten made because even as the manager, I may not have caught all those things that I should have caught. What do you do in that situation when it's almost feels like it's a little far gone?
I think in that situation, again, I still recommend starting with that human conversation, but ask the employee, perhaps, and this is probably something that we don't think about as managers or leaders in the workplace, but sometimes, people get to a place where they feel stuck. And maybe that conversation with that employee, maybe it doesn't lead to them, turning into the model employee for your team, but it could also help them gain a little more peace about what they need to do next. Sometimes just have that conversation with the employee and ask them, set the standard. This is what I need from you in your position on this team. This is what I'm getting. Tell me what's going on and how I can help, or if I can help. Kind of let the employee chart the way forward. And sometimes, like I said, that gives people a little more peace. One, that you met them where they are as humans, and may even give them a little confidence to kind of take that next step about, in terms of what they need to do for themselves. Yeah, definitely clear expectations and let the employee decide what needs to happen. Typically they know what's going on, and just a short conversation can help them, let you know what's going on.
Yeah. It's especially when you boil it down to these really simple things. You're showing us how to backtrack even from mistakes you may have made as a manager. Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes, managers, like in terms of letting things drift too far, maybe this employee has gotten so far deep into a project and needed help 3 months ago and was just too, uncomfortable speaking to their manager about that. That sitting down, having that human conversation kind of opens the doors for that. Maybe the one thing that can turn everything around is just help. Maybe that employee just needs a little more help, a little more guidance. It can be a ton of things, but you'll never know until you ask the person that's actually in the situation. So ask the employee. As a manager, you don't have to know everything and control or command everything. Let the employee tell you what needs to happen. People may not swallow having to, correct or course correct sometimes, but if you let them make the decisions about what's going to happen, or at least be involved in that decision process, I think it just changes things.
I'm also noticing a hint of that the manager sometimes needs to demonstrate humility. Like, I've actually messed up. I didn't ask you 3 months ago. I didn't ask you 2 months ago. Is that right? Is that part of the—
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and I haven't said this, but, managers also need to show their human side. I'm not comfortable talking to someone about mistakes I've made when I perceive them to be someone who doesn't acknowledge the mistakes they've made. You almost send this unspoken message that mistakes are not talked about. Just fix it. Hopefully no one will notice and we're not going to talk about it. But, if I'm showing you my human side, oh, I messed up. It just kind of, I just think that vulnerability kind of builds the relationship because, as a manager, they set the tone. And if you want a team that can acknowledge their mistakes, course correct, and get better, then you have to be willing to do that yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing from what you're saying, just a lot of human elements, both from the manager and from the team member, but just constantly be checking yourself where you are in the process as a manager.
Absolutely. And I think it's most important, especially when an employee first starts. We think about orientation and onboarding and something that maybe happens for 2 weeks and then we kind of, everyone gets kind of into a groove and we stop talking about it. But, being intentional about onboarding an employee and making sure that spills over into career development for the entire employee life cycle too. How you set the tone with the employee when they first walk in the door is really going to shape their career with your team for as long as they're with your team. So you want to make a good impression and really drive home the fact that employee development is something that you as a manager are invested in. If my team is having trouble doing something, I'm going to make sure I do all I can to help them because people have a tendency to rise to the standard that you set for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing you say way predecessor to whatever that right word is, to any kind of thoughts about discipline in the workplace. Think back to the beginning when you onboarded the employee? Are you keeping that employee career trajectory front of mind? Are you not just relegating it to that once a year discussion?
Absolutely. And I think, as managers, there's so much that the manager has to deal with. There's like the big picture that most employees don't even want to see, let alone get a chance to see. But as a manager, you hold people's livelihoods in your hands. That's an important responsibility, not just to the company, but also to the people that are reporting to you. So, take their career responsibly in terms of making sure that you are doing everything that you can to make sure that they can be successful. Because if your team is successful, you will be successful. The team, the organization will be successful. The company will be successful, and it all starts with just putting, like you said, putting the forefront my career and my success, making sure that that's a priority and what we do from day to day.
I have to tell you, just in my own experience as an executive coach, when I've worked with people whose managers have made that a priority, where it's not this person saying, how am I doing? And can we talk about my promotion in 6 months? But where the manager has said, hey, let's talk about your long-term, your short-term. Those people are so happy. They love their managers. They will stay there forever. They will do the best work. They feel like they're doing great work, but it's also a big picture of them that the manager sees.
Absolutely. When people like where they work and who they work with, you don't have to ask them things like, can you stay over 20 minutes to get this project done? They're like, oh, I'm staying until it's finished and I'm going to do the best job that I can. People work for people. We all work for a company. We all have a job. We all have responsibilities. But at the end of the day, we work for people. Like, if I love you, not love in a inappropriate way, but like if I love what I do and where I work, then I want to do the best job, not just for you, but also for me. So,
LaKenzise, I really, really want to ask you this. What is a question or questions that you really recommend that a manager asks a team member in regular one-on-ones?
I would say if it's a new employee that just came, I think, at some point within their first 6 months, you sit down and ask them, if this is the job that they expected coming in, just kind of seeing, where things are with that new employee. Because sometimes people expect a certain job and they don't necessarily get that all the time. But just like if this is what they expected, and if not, if there's anything that you can do to kind of, help build a better experience for them. And also, if it's a seasoned employee, I think, the manager asking that employee, just what would you like to do next? We often have this idea that people want to move up and, up the career ladder or whatever. But sometimes people just want to grow in their positions. They don't want to be a manager. So they want to just be good at what they do. So, asking that employee, what is it that you want to do next? Like if I've been in my position 10 years, what is it that you want to do next in your position or wherever? And then just taking the steps and, help make that happen as much as you can.
Yeah. And what about a question that you actually could ask weekly at a one-on-one? What are questions that managers should be asking their team members on a really regular basis? And it might be the same. I'm checking with you.
Yeah, I think on a weekly standpoint, I think it's important to ask your team members if there are any obstacles that you're unaware of. If there's anything going on, whether it's the environment, whether it's with resources, whatever, is there anything that's preventing them from doing their best work?
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you our 2 concluding questions, but thank you so much for coming to us. I'm just going to summarize a few things and saying that discipline in the workplace does not work. And then when I challenge you to say, okay, well, no, instead, you actually should have just the human conversation where you're clear about expectations and you're letting the employee play a role in that. So thank you so much for that framework.
Okay.
Our concluding 2 questions. First one. Okay. What is a thought that you would like to leave the people who are with us today with?
That, we are in different times. And I think more than ever, it's important that you connect with your employees as people. Not just employees, not just as people who work for the same organization, but as people. There's so much going on, and a little kindness can go a long way.
Yes, rah. Totally. And our concluding question in the Believe program: if you could snap your fingers and almost everyone in the world were to take some action, what action would you want that to be?
I would say I would want not just employees to get what they want and they need in the workplace in terms of development and training, but also managers. Probably, managers can sometimes be the most overlooked employee in the workplace. If I'm going to be great for my team, then I need someone that sees that greatness and wants to develop that greatness in me as well. So if I could snap my fingers, all managers would get like top-notch training and coaching so they can be the best managers possible.
Wouldn't that be so great?
It would be amazing.
But then an additional side benefit is they would feel exactly what it feels like for employees to be excited about and get great training.
Absolutely. Yes.
LaKenzise, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed having you on. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All the best, everybody.
All right. Bye.